You are looking at the White House right now, where just a moment ago, President Donald Trump greeted Canada's newly elected Prime Minister Mark Carney. Carney is expected to be inside the White House for some pretty important meetings, turning there to wave to the cameras before the two of them walked inside the White House. So let's go ahead and frame this meeting, of course, at a point in time right now where there are a lot of things going on both sides of the border. Big-time anti-Trump sentiments in Canada, leading to a Liberal lead and a victory for Mr. Carney. Canadians did not take kindly to Mr. Trump's repeated use of the term governor for their former prime minister, nor did they like the president suggesting that Canada become the 51st state of the United States. So when Carney won the election days ago, he said that Canada and its relationship with the United States, that at least the relationship they knew, is over. So today, top talking points will be tariffs. So ahead of today's meeting, President Donald Trump, he posted on social media this very long statement, in part saying, "I look forward to meeting the new Prime Minister of Canada, Mr. Carney. I very much want to work with him, but cannot understand one simple truth. Why is America subsidizing Canada by $200 billion a year, in addition to giving them free military protection and many other things? We don't need their cars," the president writes. "We don't need their energy. We don't need their lumber. We don't need anything they have other than their friendship, which hopefully we will always maintain. They, on the other hand, need everything from us. The Prime Minister will be arriving shortly," the president wrote, "and that will be most likely my only question of conscience." CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cord is standing by live at the White House, where Mr. Carney just arrived there. Okay, so that is a loaded statement. That is not exactly a welcome mat laid out there for the new leader of Canada.
That is absolutely right, Reed. And we are told that this is going to be a working meeting. And obviously, as you laid out, there are some antagonisms going in. President Trump has made it clear that he doesn't dislike Carney personally. In fact, he's had rather warm things to say about Carney as a person, but he is furious about the fact that the U.S. imports more from Canada every year than they import from us. And he insists that we don't need their car parts. We can make them here in the United States, that we don't need their lumber, that if only our lumber yards were at full capacity, we wouldn't need to import a third of our softwoods from Canada the way we do right now. None of this, of course, is Carney's fault or even Canada's fault necessarily. The fact that we do import a great deal of goods from Canada, where it's often cheaper to produce those goods. But nevertheless, that is the political reality that Carney is walking into today. He is well aware that this is something that really bothers Donald Trump. It bothers Trump about many countries in the world that sell more goods to the U.S. than they buy from us. And so it will be a delicate dance. And, keep in mind that Carney is performing not only for Trump here, but for an audience back home that is still getting to know him after his victory in Canada a couple of weeks ago.
Well, one could say a turnaround victory, especially for his Liberal Party. Nancy, it sounds like the White House is tempering expectations, maybe even when you look at some of the statements setting a low bar for expectations. Case in point, just yesterday, Trump's Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick said that he's skeptical that today's meeting could result in a trade deal with Canada.
Right. I mean, in some ways, there's more urgency to get some kind of a deal because President Trump has slapped 25% tariffs on so many Canadian goods, which is very challenging for the Canadian economy. But on the other hand, you've seen deals drag on with many other countries. We haven't seen a single trade deal actually get cemented between the U.S. and any other country. So the notion that Carney would come here today and they'd walk out with some grand agreement seems very far-fetched, especially given what the U.S. Commerce Secretary was saying going into these meetings, really knocking Canada's government, knocking Canada's exports. There are some sore feelings going into these talks, and I think if they're able to come to, at the very least, a meeting of the minds, some broad outlines of things they can agree to, that would probably be viewed as a win, even if they don't cement any kind of formal agreement today.
Right. So we've heard about lumber, we've heard about automotive parts out of Canada, but now there's this conversation in the zeitgeist about film production, Canadian film production, talk of 100% tariffs on movies that are made outside the United States. It's not uncommon for a U.S. film to go north of the border and be filmed in Canada.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of questions about how these 100% tariffs that President Trump just announced on Sunday, to the surprise of the entertainment industry, would actually work. And the White House has made it clear that this is still a work in progress. There are a lot of details still to be worked out. But everyone agrees that because it is cheaper for the industry to produce movies, film movies overseas, that a lot of production has moved out of the U.S., which is, by all accounts, a problem. And a lot of that production has moved to Canada because it is nearby and because it is cheaper. But what we've been hearing from leaders in California, including the governor, and from leaders in the entertainment industry, is that they don't think that tariffs are the answer. They don't see how it would work. They feel like it would be punitive for American companies. They would like to see something like tax incentives instead, to incentivize them to move production back to the United States to make it cheaper for them to do so. So there's no doubt that that's going to come up today, but it is unclear whether this is something that is really and truly in the works, Reed, or if this is just something that came to the president's mind on Sunday after talking to the actor Jon Voight, that he decided to put out in the universe without a lot of consulting with his top aides first.
All right, Nancy Cordes, CBS News Chief White House correspondent, always keeping us up to date. Okay, so as Nancy was talking, there is that important meeting going on just a little while ago. The man that Canadians sent into office as prime minister walked through those doors with President Donald Trump. We're going to continue to watch what comes out of that meeting. Hey, if you look at the president's Truth Social post referring to Mr. Carney as prime minister, that may be a step forward in some positive relations. Let's keep in mind, predecessor was called the governor of Canada, famously by the president of the United States. We'll continue watching for that.